Hey all, Joe Riley here, man. This is the first #1 video of my lesson series of the Shred Shop. Gonna pass this along to all you fellow guitar players. Have any questions about anything? Please, once again, send them in to me at joerileymusic@yahoo.com. I want to start my lessons today with some of the questions I've been asked. #1 is, how do I move so fast? Just tons of practice, tons and tons of practice. Literally hundreds of thousands of hours over the past how many years. So anyway, moving on. One of the first things I want to talk about with the lesson series is how important it is to know what's on the neck in front of you. As far as all of the notes, you need to know what's there, especially if you're going to play this crazy solo stuff that I do, and many others like Steve Vai and Satriani and guys like that. Looking at the first approach, I always tell my students to look at the top two strings, you know, your low E and your A string. And learn those first. That way you know where you're at, so you can always grab those notes at any given time. So what we're going to do is we're going to address first, start with the A string. It follows a chromatic scale of A. What a chromatic means is one fret at a time. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to go to the A string. It's your 5th string from the bottom. Going to that string, it starts out at A. You go to A sharp or B flat, and then B, straight to C. C sharp, D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, and then it gets back to A. Your 12th fret starts over again. Okay, now, all of your other strings follow that pattern, except whatever the name of the string is, that's where it starts in the pattern. So if you go to your low E, it is E, straight to F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, back to E. Now, the sharps and flats, that's a term called enharmonic. It means same sound, but different note name. Another way to look at that is when you use sharps, up the neck you use sharps, down the neck you use flats. Up meaning up in pitch, down meaning down towards the headstock. So, moving on. When I play my solos, I typically teach all my students to start with a simple pattern. It's called a box pattern. What the box pattern is it's a term used kind of layman type style here that would be the Egyptian scale is actually the true terminology for that. I give my students that because it's an easy pattern. It's easy to manipulate. You can put it just about in any song. We're going to start with that today. We're going to start with the A box or A Egyptian scale. I'm going to walk you through that. It's 5 on the low E, 7 on the low E, drop down. You want to do 5 on the D, which is the A string, D note, 7 on the A string, which is the E note, drop down to the 5 on the D string, which is a G note, and then 7 on the D, which is an A note. So if you play that in repetition here, you have. Now with that, you can move that to the 2nd octave. So if you take that, starting at A, there's your A there, and you move that up to the 2nd octave, it looks like this. Now, when you cross from the G string to the B string, you have to add a fret. So if you walk that again, you have shift, and you end on A. Now real quick, that goes back to something I tell all my students. The guitar is a big puzzle. In order to shred like I do, you basically have to know what's going on with that puzzle and how you find those octave notes. So we're going to start with that. So we go back to the A. If we go up 2 frets and we skip a string, so we skip over the A and land on the D string at the 7th fret, there's my octave. And then from there, I got to go up 3 frets. So I go from here, 1, 2, 3. I skip over the G to the B string. There's my A again. So play a note, go up 2 frets, skip a string, up 3 frets, skip a string. There's your octaves. Okay. Now what I do is I typically walk from those. I use those as kind of a bookends, if you will. So. That's how we find where we're going there. Now in that pattern there, I played the box, but I actually ad-libbed a little bit. I threw in a flat third, which is a C note. So we'll get into that later in more lessons. So if you can use that box pattern anywhere, just about in any typical pattern of any sorts that doesn't use anything like a flat 5 or a diminished type pattern. We'll talk about that a little later as well. But typically your majors and minors, you can use that box pattern just about anywhere because it doesn't use the third. Third is what voices your major and minor. If it's a major third, it's the actual third in the major scale. If you flat that third, it becomes a minor. This one doesn't use that. It actually just uses the 1, the 2, the 4, the 5. It does use a flat 7, but flat 7 is more of a color tone at this point. So now if I want to take that and I want to play that in the key of E, I would just move to an E note, which I could go here to the 7th fret on the A string, play that same pattern, and then shift here. There's my E box, or E Egyptian scale. So if I play that together, I'm going to play a little rhythm here with it, and I'll throw that in so you can see how that works. And there you have it. Alright, I want to move on. I did have some questions here from some viewers. Basically started with one of the things I do in my solos. I do a lot of tapping, but the way I do my taps, I actually tap in octaves and I tap in 5s. Sometimes thirds. It depends on what the song is, what it's calling for. So I'm going to start with that. Basically, if we're going to start with A, we're going to use the key of A here all day. Okay, what I do is I grab an A note, which is the 2nd fret on the G string. And I grab that note, and then I tap out 1 octave higher in A at the 14th fret on the G string. So if I hit that, okay, so I basically have that octave there. And then what I'll do is I'll do a bend with my left hand. So I have, and then a lot of times after I do that bend, I'll release, but I'm still holding down the 14th fret with my right hand. And then I'll jump to the 5th in the scale, which the 5th in the key of A is actually an E note. So I'll grab an E note at the 9th fret on the G. So I have this. And then what I'll do is I'll go up an octave higher than that, and I'll grab the E note here at the 21st fret. And then put some vibrato on it with my left hand. So it looks like this. And there's my tap. I may move that around. I may grab the third. I may grab different notes here and there just for flavor. But typically that's one of the tap things that I do. So I'm going to end this whole session here with a little bit of a jam, throw some of these licks in, and then, like I said, if you have any more questions, feel free to submit them. I'll be glad to answer any of those I can, and if I can't do it, I'll try to figure it out for you. Till then, keep rocking. Thank you.